Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and thank you for being here today because what you are about to hear may completely change the way you look at ordinary pocket change forever. Especially if you have ever come across a 1977 mint marked 1-cent coin from the United States. Because this seemingly common copper penny has become one of the most talked about and controversial coins in modern numismatic history. With rare examples connected to extraordinary minting errors, freak mistakes, and astonishing anomalies that have pushed its theoretical value as high as $22 million in legendary collector discussions, museum-level evaluations, and elite private transactions. And while most people casually overlook pennies as worthless clutter, the truth is that the 1977 1-cent represents a perfect storm of history, human error, machine malfunction, transitional experimentation, and collector obsession that can turn a single cent into a life-changing treasure. And to understand why this coin holds such jaw-dropping potential, we need to step back into the late 1970s when the United States Mint was under enormous pressure due to inflation, rising copper prices, aging equipment, increased production demands, and quiet internal testing of alternative metals, all of which created the ideal environment for rare mistakes to slip through unnoticed. Especially at the Denver Mint, where the D Mint mark was applied, and unlike earlier decades where quality control was stricter, the 1970s saw a dramatic increase in error coins reaching circulation simply because speed and volume became more important than perfection, and the 1977 penny sits right at the heart of that chaos, struck primarily in a copper alloy composition that was already becoming economically problematic, which led to experimental planchets, recycled metal batches, and improperly mixed alloys entering the production line. And when you combine that with worn dies, misaligned presses, and rushed inspections, you begin to see how a single coin could emerge with a combination of errors so rare that collectors would eventually consider it priceless. One of the most valuable error possibilities associated with the 1977 penny is a wrong planchet strike, where the coin was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a different metal entirely. And while officially the U.S. Mint did not announce copper-plated zinc pennies until 1982, internal testing and leftover planchets from experimental runs are believed by some experts to have existed years earlier, making it theoretically possible for a 1977 cent to be struck on an aluminum, bronze, or even foreign planchet. And if a verified example surface struck on a non-standard metal with full mint characteristics and unquestionable authenticity, it would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. coins ever discovered, with values soaring into the multi-million-dollar range due to its transitional significance alone. Another massive value-driving factor lies in double die errors, particularly double die verse varieties where the date, lettering, and Lincoln's portrait shows strong doubling caused by misalignment during the die creation process, and while minor doubling is relatively common, extreme hub doubling on a 1977 penny would be almost unheard of because Denver was not known for producing major double dies during that era, which means that any confirmed strong double die example would stand out dramatically in the numismatic world, especially if the doubling is visible to the naked eye and affects multiple design elements. And when collectors encounter something that defies known patterns, competition becomes fierce, prices explode, and records are rewritten, but doubling alone is not enough to reach legendary status. Which is why the most valuable 1977 pennies are believed to feature multiple errors stacked together, such as off-metal strikes combined with misalignment, weak strikes, or die rotation errors. And one of the most dramatic possibilities is a broad strike error where the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar, causing it to expand outward and distort the design. And while broad strikes are known, a broad strike on a wrong planchet with full mint luster and clear date would be a once-in-a-generation discovery. Especially if it also displays an inverted or rotated die alignment, another jaw-dropping mistake that drives extreme value is a major off-center strike, particularly those exceeding 50% off-center while still showing the full date and mint mark, because that combination proves the coin's origin while dramatically altering its appearance. And when such an error is paired with pristine condition and original surfaces, collectors view it as both art and history frozen in metal. And condition is critical here because most era coins are heavily damaged or circulated, but a high-grade mint state 1977 D era coin with blazing luster, sharp details, and no post-mint damage becomes exponentially more valuable, pushing it into elite auction territory where wealthy collectors, investment funds, and museums compete fiercely. Another factor that fuels the $22 million legend is the possibility of a mule error, or mismatched dies from different coin designs were accidentally paired together, and although extremely rare in modern sense, mule errors have occurred in other denominations, and a confirmed 1977 D penny struck with an incorrect reverse design or a mismatched obverse from another year would rewrite numismatic textbooks overnight, instantly elevating its status from rare to historically unique. And then there are die errors such as die cracks, retained cut breaks, and shattered dies, which on their own may not command millions. But when extreme and combined with other anomalies, they contribute to the overall uniqueness of a coin, and some rumored examples of 1977 D pennies are said to feature dramatic retained cut breaks that distort Lincoln's portrait or obliterate parts of the lettering while maintaining full mint integrity. And these kinds of visual distortions captivate collectors because they represent the final moments of a dying die, capturing a split second of minting history that can never be replicated. Another overlooked but crucial value driver is weight deviation, because pennies struck on the wrong alloy will weigh significantly more or less than the standard 3.11 grams, and serious collectors and grading services place enormous importance on precise weight measurements, metallurgical analysis, and XRF testing, and if a 1977 D penny were proven to have a non-standard composition using modern scientific methods, its value would skyrocket instantly. Especially if the metal composition aligns with experimental alloys or unauthorized test materials, and the reason values can reach absurd heights like $22 million is not because every 1977 D penny is valuable, but because the numismatic market does not operate on averages, it operates on extremes, uniqueness, and historical importance, and when a coin is truly one of a kind or one of only a handful known, wealthy collectors do not think in terms of cents or thousands, they think in terms of legacy, prestige, and owning something no one else on earth can own, and this psychological factor plays a massive role in pushing prices into the stratosphere, especially when a coin becomes famous, discussed online, featured in major publications, and whispered about in elite collecting circles. And once a coin reaches that mythic status, its value becomes self-reinforcing because every new owner adds to its story, and the 1977 D penny has all the ingredients needed for that kind of legend. From its timing during a turbulent minting era, to its potential for undocumented experiments, to the sheer number of errors that could theoretically coexist on a single piece, and while skeptics argue that such values are exaggerated, history has proven again and again that coins once dismissed as impossible later shattered records, and the key takeaway for anyone watching is that the real value lies in awareness, careful inspection, and understanding what to look for. Because many of these era coins were discovered by ordinary people who simply took the time to examine their change closely, and even today, unsearched rolls, old collections, estate jars, and forgotten coin albums can still contain undiscovered treasures, especially coins like the 1977 D penny that were minted in massive quantities but only a microscopic fraction contain the kinds of errors that create million-dollar outcomes. And while not every error will make you rich, knowing the possibilities opens the door to opportunity. And the story of the 1977 D 1-cent coin serves as a powerful reminder that extraordinary value often hides in the most ordinary places, waiting for the right eyes to recognize it, the right tools to verify it, and the right moment to reveal it to the world. And that is why this humble penny continues to fascinate collectors, fuel speculation, and inspire treasure hunters across generations, because somewhere out there, perhaps still undiscovered, lies a 1977 D penny whose mistakes transformed it into a masterpiece worth more than most homes, businesses. Next, 1965 No Mint Mark 1-cent United States coin, a penny that appears ordinary at first glance yet is surrounded by legends, documented anomalies, secret mint practices, and extraordinary errors that have propelled its theoretical value as high as $25 million in elite numismatic discussions, private collector negotiations, and museum-level evaluations. And to understand how a single penny from 1965 could ever reach such an unimaginable figure, we must travel back to one of the most chaotic and secretive periods in U.S. mint history, a time when the nation was facing massive coin shortages, skyrocketing metal prices, public hoarding, and internal panic that forced the mint to make rapid, sometimes undocumented decisions that still puzzle experts today. Because 1965 was not just another year, it was a turning point. A year when the U.S. government removed mint marks entirely from all coins to discourage hoarding, creating an entire generation of coins with no mint identification. And while billions of pennies were struck that year, the conditions under which they were produced created the perfect environment for some of the rarest and most valuable errors ever imagined to slip into circulation unnoticed, especially for the 1-cent coin, which was still composed primarily of copper at a time when copper prices were climbing dangerously close to face value, forcing the mint to experiment, recycle, and reuse metal stock in ways that were never fully disclosed to the public. And this secrecy is one of the key reasons why the 1965 no-mint mark penny holds such legendary potential, because collectors and researchers believe that undocumented transitional planchets, experimental alloys, and test strikes may have been used quietly behind closed doors, and if even one authenticated example of such an anomaly were to surface today, it would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. coins ever known, with values that could realistically reach into the tens of millions due to its historical and transitional significance alone. One of the most powerful value drivers associated with the 1965 penny is the possibility of a wrong planchet strike, where the coin was struck on a metal disc never intended for a 1-cent denomination, such as a silver planchet, a foreign planchet, or an experimental alloy. And because 1965 was the same year the mint transitioned away from silver in dimes and quarters, the facilities were flooded with mixed metal blanks, scrap materials, and transitional stock, making accidental cross-denomination strikes far more plausible than in calmer years, and a 1965 penny struck on a silver or clad planchet, fully authenticated and graded, would represent a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that bridges two major eras of American coinage, instantly elevating its status from curiosity to national treasure. But metal composition alone is not the only factor driving extreme value, because the 1965 no-mint mark penny is also associated with some of the most dramatic double die errors ever theorized, particularly double die obverse varieties where the date, the word liberty, the motto "I in God we trust," and Lincoln's portrait show strong, unmistakable doubling caused by misalignment during the hubbing process. And during 1965 the mint was operating at unprecedented speed to meet public demand, which dramatically increased the likelihood of die preparation errors, and while many minor double dies exist, an extreme example with bold separation visible without magnification would instantly become one of the most famous pennies in existence, especially because no major double die cents from 1965 are officially recognized in mainstream references. Meaning any confirmed example would shock the numismatic world and trigger massive competition among collectors desperate to own a piece of newly discovered history. Another mind-blowing error possibility involves transitional composition mistakes, because while pennies officially remained copper until 1982, internal testing of alternative metals is believed by some experts to have occurred much earlier, especially during periods of economic strain. And if a 1965 penny were proven through metallurgical analysis to contain a non-standard alloy inconsistent with known specifications, it would raise serious questions about undocumented experiments, unauthorized test strikes, or emergency production measures, and these questions are exactly what drive extreme values, because collectors are not just buying a coin, they are buying a mystery, a story, and a challenge to official records. And few things excite the numismatic community more than a coin that forces history books to be rewritten. Another extraordinary value factor lies in major off-center strikes, especially those exceeding 50% off-center while still retaining the full date and clear design elements, because such coins provide undeniable proof of origin while showcasing dramatic visual distortion. And when such an error occurs on a historically significant year like 1965, its desirability multiplies, and if that off-center strike is combined with other anomalies such as broad strike characteristics or die rotation errors, the resulting coin becomes almost impossible to price using traditional metrics, pushing it into the realm of private negotiations and record-setting auction estimates. Die rotation errors themselves are another powerful contributor to value, because when the obverse and reverse of a coin are misaligned significantly beyond standard tolerance, it indicates a serious mechanical malfunction during striking, and extreme rotations of 90 degrees or even 180 degrees are especially prized, and when paired with high-grade surfaces and original luster, such errors become centerpieces of elite collections. Another legendary error type associated with the 1965 penny is the possibility of a mule strike, where mismatched dies from different years or denominations were accidentally paired together, and while mule errors are exceedingly rare in cents, they are not impossible, especially during years of massive production pressure, and a confirmed 1965 penny mule featuring an incorrect reverse design or mismatched date style would instantly become one of the most famous U.S. coins ever discovered, commanding extraordinary prices due to its absolute uniqueness. And then there are die state errors such as massive die cracks, shattered dies, retained cuds, and interior breaks that dramatically alter the coin's appearance. And while many die cracks are common, an extreme retained cud that distorts Lincoln's portrait or obliterates part of the legend while preserving full mint characteristics captures the final moments of a dying die, freezing a fleeting instant of minting history in metal. And collectors place enormous value on such coins because they represent unrepeatable events, another often overlooked but crucial factor in achieving a $25 million valuation is condition, because even the rarest error loses significant value if heavily worn or damaged, and the most valuable 1965 penny would need to exist in an extraordinary state of preservation, ideally mint state with sharp details, original surfaces, and no post-mint damage. Because condition multiplies rarity, and when rarity and condition intersect, prices explode, and this is especially true for coins authenticated and graded by top-tier services, which provide the confidence needed for high-stakes transactions. But beyond physical characteristics, the psychology of collectors plays a massive role in driving values into the stratosphere, because ultra-wealthy collectors are not constrained by budgets the way ordinary buyers are. They are motivated by prestige, exclusivity, and the desire to own something no one else on earth possesses. And when a coin becomes famous, debated, and mythologized, its value becomes self-reinforcing, with each new mention adding to its aura, and the 1965 no-mint mark penny has all the ingredients needed for that transformation, from its role in a historic policy change, to the secrecy surrounding its production, to the sheer scale of potential errors that could exist within its massive mintage. And while skeptics argue that such values are exaggerated, history has repeatedly proven that coins once dismissed as impossible later shattered records, and the key lesson for anyone watching is that extraordinary value often hides in plain sight, and that knowledge, patience, and careful examination can uncover treasures where others see only spare change, because many of the most valuable coins ever discovered were found by ordinary people who simply took the time to look closely. And even today, old jars, inherited collections, bank rolls, and forgotten albums may still hold undiscovered 1965 pennies with anomalies waiting to be recognized. And while not every era will make you rich, understanding the possibilities opens the door to opportunity, and the story of the 1965 no-mint mark 1-cent coin stands as a powerful reminder that in the world of rare coins, history, error, secrecy, and human imperfection can collide to create value beyond imagination, transforming a simple penny into a $25 million legend that continues to captivate collectors, inspire treasure hunters, and prove that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest stories. Next, 1964 no-mint mark 1-cent United States coin, a penny that most people would dismiss as ordinary spare change but which has become one of the most legendary and controversial coins in modern American numismatic history, with rare and extraordinary examples tied to minting errors, secret experiments, and historical circumstances that have pushed its theoretical value as high as $25 million in elite collector discussions, private negotiations, and museum-level speculation. And to truly understand how a simple penny from 1964 could ever reach such a staggering valuation, we must step back into one of the most turbulent and fascinating periods in U.S. mint history, a time when America was undergoing massive economic shifts, metal prices were climbing rapidly, and the mint was under intense pressure to produce billions of coins while quietly adapting to changes that would soon transform the nation's coinage forever. Because 1964 was not just another year for pennies. It was the final full year before sweeping changes in American coin composition, policy, and production practices took effect, making it a critical transitional moment that created the perfect environment for rare mistakes and anomalies to slip into circulation unnoticed. And while billions of 1964 pennies were struck, all officially bearing no mint mark for Philadelphia issues, the sheer volume combined with aging machinery, overworked staff, and increasing experimentation with materials created conditions where a tiny number of coins emerged that were anything but ordinary, and it is these coins, not the common examples, that fueled the legend of the $25,001,964 penny, one of the most powerful value-driving possibilities associated with the 1964 no-mint mark cent is the chance of a wrong planchet strike, where the coin was accidentally struck on a metal blank intended for a different denomination or a different purpose altogether, and during 1964 the mint was simultaneously producing silver coins, copper cents, and preparing for upcoming compositional changes, which meant that planchets of various metals were often present in the same facilities, increasing the risk of accidental cross strikes, and if a 1964 penny were struck on a silver planchet, a clad experimental blank, or even a foreign planchet, and authenticated beyond any doubt, it would instantly become one of the most important modern U.S. coins ever discovered, because it would represent a tangible artifact of a transitional era when the old and new coinage systems overlapped, and such a discovery would not only captivate collectors but also challenge official mint records, driving values into the multi-million-dollar range due to its historical significance alone. Another extraordinary factor that contributes to the immense potential value of the 1964 penny is the possibility of transitional metal anomalies. Because while pennies officially remained a copper alloy during this period, the mint was already feeling the economic strain of rising copper prices and is widely believed to have tested alternative alloys internally, even if those tests were never publicly acknowledged, and a 1964 penny with a proven non-standard metal composition, confirmed through advanced metallurgical analysis, would raise serious questions about undocumented experiments, emergency production measures, or unauthorized test strikes, all of which are exactly the kinds of mysteries that drive elite collectors into bidding wars, because collectors are not just purchasing metal, they are purchasing history, secrecy, and the thrill of owning something that rewrites what we thought we knew. And beyond metal composition, doubled die errors play a massive role in the legendary status of certain 1964 pennies, particularly doubled die obverse varieties where the date, the word liberty, the motto "I in God we trust," and Lincoln's portrait shows strong, unmistakable doubling caused by misalignment during the die hubbing process. And while minor doubling exists on many coins, an extreme doubled die with bold separation visible to the naked eye would be exceptionally rare for this year, especially considering the mint's intense production pace, and such a coin would immediately become a centerpiece of modern numismatics, because it would combine a historically important year with a visually dramatic and easily recognizable error, driving demand far beyond typical collector circles and into the realm of high-end investors and institutions. Another dramatic error possibility involves major off-center strikes, especially those exceeding 50% off-center while still retaining the full date and clear design elements, because these coins provide undeniable proof of origin while showcasing a striking visual imbalance that captures attention instantly. And when such an error occurs on a year as historically significant as 1964, its desirability multiplies, particularly if the coin also displays original mint luster and minimal wear, and off-center errors can become even more valuable when combined with other anomalies such as broad strike characteristics, where the coin expands beyond its normal diameter due to the absence of a retaining collar, creating a distorted yet fascinating appearance that collectors find irresistible. Die rotation errors are another powerful contributor to the extreme value potential of the 1964 penny, because when the obverse and reverse of a coin are misaligned beyond standard tolerances, it indicates a serious mechanical malfunction during striking, and extreme rotations of 90 degrees or even 180 degrees are especially prized, and when such an error appears on a well-preserved 1964 penny, it adds yet another layer of rarity and intrigue that pushes the coin closer to legendary status. Then there are mule errors, among the rarest and most fascinating mistakes in all of numismatics, where mismatched dies from different denominations or years are accidentally paired together, and while mule errors are exceedingly rare in sense, they are not impossible, particularly during periods of intense production pressure like 1964, and a confirmed 1964 penny struck with an incorrect reverse design or mismatched die pairing would instantly become one of the most famous coins in American history, commanding extraordinary prices due to its absolute uniqueness. And die state errors such as massive die cracks, shattered dies, retained cuds, and interior breaks further add to the range of possibilities that make certain 1964 pennies so valuable, because these errors capture the final stages of a failing die, freezing a fleeting moment of minting history that can never be replicated. And while many small die cracks are common, extreme examples that dramatically alter Lincoln's portrait or the surrounding lettering are far rarer and far more desirable, especially when combined with other errors or exceptional condition itself being a crucial multiplier of value, because even the rarest error loses much of its appeal if heavily worn or damaged, and the most valuable 1964 penny would need to exist in an extraordinary state of preservation, ideally mint state with sharp details, original surfaces, and no post-mint damage. Because when rarity and condition intersect, prices can rise exponentially, and this is especially true when a coin is authenticated and graded by top-tier services that provide the confidence necessary for high-stakes transactions involving millions of dollars. But beyond the physical characteristics of the coin, the psychology of collectors plays an enormous role in driving valuations into the stratosphere, because ultra-wealthy collectors are motivated not just by profit, but by prestige, exclusivity, and the desire to own something no one else can ever own. And when a coin becomes famous, debated, and mythologized within the numismatic community, its value becomes self-reinforcing, growing with every article, discussion, and whispered rumor, and the 1964 no-mint mark penny has all the ingredients needed for that transformation, from its place at the end of an era, to the secrecy surrounding mint operations at the time, to the sheer scale of production that makes rare anomalies both possible and incredibly difficult to find. And while skeptics may argue that $25 million is an exaggeration, history has repeatedly shown that coins once dismissed as impossible later shattered records when the right example surfaced. And the key message for anyone listening is that extraordinary value often hides in the most ordinary places, and that awareness, patience, and careful examination can uncover treasures where others see only spare change. Because many of the world's most valuable coins were discovered not by experts in laboratories, but by ordinary people who took the time to look closely, and even today, old jars, inherited collections, bank rolls, and forgotten albums may still contain undiscovered 1964 pennies with extraordinary anomalies waiting to be recognized. And while not every error will make you rich, understanding the possibilities opens the door to opportunity. And the story of the 1964 no-mint mark 1-cent coin stands as a powerful reminder that in the world of rare coins, imperfection, chance, secrecy,